Do y'all want to know what's really difficult? Living in a world that is completely blind to the fact that the bloodline of the fallen are in control of everything here. And what's actually worse for me is 90% of the church are blind to this. And I know this is partly because, churches today, pastors today, they just don't talk about this stuff anymore. They don't talk about the spiritual realm that is literally all around us at all times. They don't talk about Satan. They don't talk about demons. They don't talk about what actually happened before the flood, why God had to flood the earth. They don't talk about this 6,000-year-old seed war that is going on right this moment. They don't talk about the Nephilim, none of it. And it's really unfortunate because we are at war with a very real enemy. And when you go to war, you need to know your enemy. Otherwise, you're going to be deficient in battle. And that is exactly what the Bible tells us. It says that we should not be unaware of the schemes of the enemy. We should be familiar with his tactics. We should be familiar with how he operates. But unfortunately, because Christians today, because the church today, they want to stick their head in the sand and they want to pretend like Satan doesn't exist. They get now uncomfortable when you talk about the spiritual realm because of this, because they don't know their enemy. They have no idea what is going on in the world right now. They have no idea how this world actually operates, how it is ran. They have no idea the spiritual reality of who is actually in control. They don't understand that our government actively serves Satan, that our politicians are actively involved in rituals and sacrifices, that, most of Hollywood, most of the media, most of our politicians are not even fully human. Everything in this world goes back to the Bible. Everything is spiritual. The Bible tells us that Satan is the god of this world. This entire world is under the control of the evil one. What do you think that means? But again, because they don't know their enemy, they are blind to it. And they are out here applauding the very peace that the Word of God warned us about. Please do not be deceived. We as followers of Christ have complete authority over that entire kingdom, over the entire kingdom of darkness, over every demon, over Satan himself. We have complete authority. There should be no fear. We need to start facing this reality, the biblical, spiritual reality of this walk with Christ, of this world that we live in. We need to start facing it. Satan is the god of this world, and we need to start understanding and accepting what that actually means. We need to start accepting that this world may not be what you think it is, that what you see may not be reality, that there is a spiritual reality going on behind the scenes. We are in the last seconds of the last days. And because the church doesn't know their enemy, they are missing the fact that the enemy masquerades as an angel of light. In these last moments, the Bible tells us that there is not a revival. There is not this worldwide revival of Christianity. There is a falling away. And because they don't know their enemy, because they don't know how Satan operates, they are missing what is happening. Please start getting into the Word and understanding your enemy. We have complete authority over him through the name of Jesus Christ. We have complete authority over him. So there should be zero fear. But we need to face reality because this is a war. And because so many of you don't want to face reality, because so many of you don't want to get to know your enemy, you don't want to admit that there is a spiritual realm, you are unaware of what is actually going on in this world.
"9/11 started as commercial insurance fraud. It was known in 1988 that the Twin Towers were condemned because they didn't want to pay the $2 billion to dismantle the buildings the hard way. Controlled demolitions was forbidden. When that was briefed to Dick Cheney as Secretary of Defense, I believe he said, "Praise the Lord, this is going to be a terrorism event that will give us a reason for invading Iraq and Afghanistan." And at that point, the 9/11, which was planned and executed by the Zionists, which is not the Jews. When I say Zionists, I'm talking about what's called the Red Mafia. That's the Russians, Israelis, and Americans who are a criminal network that happens to control Benjamin Netanyahu. It does not control Donald Trump. People don't understand that Trump is biding his time. The NSA is not about solving problems or making America safe. It's about keeping the money moving. The second reason that the program was canceled was because it was starting to reveal all of the Americans who were complicit in 9/11. And the problem we have in the United States is that the intelligence community is all about spending a great deal of money doing very bad things. So let's say overall there's about 300 things that the intelligence community should be reporting on. They don't. They report on two things: war and terrorism. And in both cases, they're the ones starting the wars and funding the terrorists.
According to General Flynn and federal insiders, preparations are underway for a coordinated cyber and communications assault, one that could cripple America's power grid, banking systems, and digital lifelines overnight. The question isn't if it happens, it's who is orchestrating it. Because while the Israeli-controlled media point the finger at China, the digital fingerprints lead somewhere far closer to home: Israel's global cyber network. A plot far larger and far darker than anybody first realized.
The U.S. Secret Service says that it has uncovered a plot to cripple the nation's telecommunications. The plot was initially discovered last week in New York after swatting calls against high-ranking officials, and it now has been believed to be larger than first realized. Federal agents discovered additional locations and more equipment capable of crippling every cell tower, as well as sending anonymous text messages to every person in the United States. While the network is no longer a threat, the Secret Service is still trying to determine the motive and who exactly is behind it.
The moment the story broke, the Israeli-controlled propaganda outlet switched on. China did it, they said. Russia's involved, and the US must prepare for World War III. But insiders know how this game works. The louder they shout, the more they're trying to hide who's really behind the curtain. One source inside the investigation said it bluntly: no agency would take a risk like that unless they knew the system would protect them. They wouldn't risk exposing their assets. Whoever's behind it has high-level cover in DC, and they know it.
The idea that this is just New York is just ridiculous. People who can get into these systems and they seek ransom, they seek money, or they just seek disruption for disruption's sake.
Authorities are now searching for other networks across the country, and no arrests have been made.
General Flynn asked the questions that should be on everybody's mind. How many more of these networks are out there? Who's tracking them? Who's stopping them? And when will our so-called leaders admit the truth? This isn't a glitch. It's an act of war against the American people. Let's be clear, this didn't happen overnight. The blueprint has been circulating for years among the same powerful interests who profit from crisis and control. And now their script is being followed to the letter.
Pay insufficient attention to the frightening scenario of a comprehensive cyber attack, which would bring to a complete halt to the power supply, transportation, hospital services, our society as a whole. The COVID-19 crisis would be seen in this respect as a small disturbance in comparison to a major cyber attack.
You don't need to be a body language expert to see it. Professor Schwab's deranged excitement when talking about a worse than 9/11 cyber attack isn't normal. Students of history know this pattern. The global elite are using Israel to steer the world towards a new war, one that will leave nations shattered and pave the way for a single centralized system of control. From the ruins, a new order will rise, digital, authoritarian, and absolute.
What role in the Middle East again does Israel play in this?
Israel was created as the instrument to bring about the Battle of Armageddon and the fulfillment of prophecy, a war that will be so terrible, where nuclear weapons will be used, so that the American citizens and the other people in the world will get down on their knees and beg for no more war. And what is the answer to that? They're going to be told the only way we can guarantee no more war is if we destroy the sovereignty of nations and we come together as one humanity in a one world government.
Right. Okay. And the Jewish people were then being manipulated into believing it was for some other reason.
That's correct. They've always been manipulated. And I get people who still come to me all the time and say, Bill, you're all wrong. It's the Jews. The Jews are subverting the world. Man, it's not the Jews. It's not the Catholics. It's not the blacks. It's these men who belong to the ancient mystery schools who meet in secret and decide the fate of the world.
Behind the curtain, powerful networks have already seized control of the world's communications channels. From the algorithms that shape what you see, to the newsrooms that decide what you believe. Even the VPNs that you thought were protecting you have been hijacked and compromised. The narratives are being engineered, war is being normalized, and dissent is disappearing before our eyes. The elite are now at war with Americans not by open conflict, but by silent weapons and quiet wars.
We're going to have to use the tools of battle. You know, the weapons change over time, but we have to fight with the weapons that apply to the battlefields in which we're engaged. And the most important ones are the social media.
We've been warning about this for years. The blueprint has been sitting in plain sight the whole time, and now they're moving fast. Step by step, they're taking control of the very systems that once gave us freedom. The first move? Silencing dissent and dismantling privacy online. Every new restriction, every new security measure, every round of censorship brings them closer to total control. And whether people see it or not, it's all part of the same grand design.
At the highest level of all countries, they all belong to the same club. And we, the people, sit back and we watch this grand drama, which is being played out for our benefit, not theirs. If it wasn't for us, they wouldn't even have to do any of this. But you see, they just can't come out and destroy all of us because they need slaves. They need people to make their shoes, and make their cars, and mine the ore. They need worker bees, and that's what we are. In the New World Order, we will be the worker bees, the slaves.
Here's the good news. The people are waking up. From America to Europe to Australia, a global movement is rising. Millions of us exposing their false flags, their gaslighting, their agenda of control. And here's the part they didn't see coming. We're fighting back, with knowledge, with courage, and with the tools to break their digital chains. Because here's the truth they don't want you to know. The VPNs you thought were your shield, your last line of defense against government and corporate surveillance, have already been hijacked. One Tel Aviv-based company with a long history of distributing malware has quietly bought up nearly all the biggest VPNs on the planet. ExpressVPN, CyberGhost, private internet access, the list goes on. And the people they hire, not random techies, not privacy activists, but veterans of Israel's most notorious intelligence units, Unit 8200. The cyber warfare arm behind some of the world's most advanced spying tools. And the Dovdadan unit, infiltration experts turned executives. When their operatives get caught spying, they don't get punished, they get promoted. It's shameless. The fox has taken control of the henhouse. And those are the people now asking you to trust their no-logs policy. Trust them not to peek. Trust them not to sell your data. Trust them with your entire digital life. Behind closed doors, Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s Chemtrails task force has dropped a quiet but devastating bombshell. Using encrypted Doge channels to cloak their movements, the team infiltrated DARPA's classified financial network. And what they uncovered was nothing short of staggering. Inside the data, they found the blueprints for a global shadow war. Powerful organizations funneling hundreds of millions into coordinated aerosol operations over American skies. Despite growing public outrage, the spraying hasn't stopped. And the shocking truth is US taxpayers are unknowingly funding it, with millions of dollars flowing out every single day. But one discovery throws investigators in their tracks. A foreign intelligence partner, officially an ally, secretly bankrolling what internal memos describe as psychological operations targeting US citizens. For those still living in denial about the origins of the chemtrails operations, it's time to wake up before it's too late. For decades, the military's top brass have quietly signed off on operations that treat the American people as unwitting test subjects. Commanders have handed down classified orders authorizing aerosol dispersals over major population centers, and then buried the evidence under layers of compartmentalized clearance. If you think this is just a coincidence, or climate engineering gone wrong, you're not paying attention to the evidence that's hiding in plain sight in the skies above our heads.
Gotcha, traitors.
Evidence like this video isn't just compelling, it's invaluable. It connects what we see above our heads to what's buried deep in classified defense budgets. The Chemtrails task force made it clear. It's time for the people to rise up. They urge citizens to watch the skies, document, and expose. And the public has answered that call. Every contrail, every haze, every unmarked jet is being logged and cross-referenced. For the first time, the people aren't just watching the skies, they're fighting back. Even the experts are finally admitting it. After decades of gaslighting, Congress is hearing the truth. We were right. We're not conspiracy theorists. We're being used as lab rats in a reckless experiment on humanity.
My written testimony goes into detail explaining my decision to join more than 500 other scientists and academics from around the world to call for a solar engineering non-use agreement. I'll just briefly state, first, the understandings are not sufficiently developed to know what the outcomes would be, and unintended consequences are almost certain to happen. Second, our 70-year history with weather modification should give us some humility in thinking that we can understand what the consequences might be. We've been trying to modify the weather for 70 years, and we don't know if we're modifying the weather. And finally, we have one Earth, and experimenting on it carries considerable risks. I have likened geoengineering to risky gain-of-function research on viruses with uncertain benefits and catastrophic risks.
Now, the federal government has been involved in cloud seeding since the 1940s. Using the planet as a test monkey for emerging technologies poses all sorts of risks. Among these that have been highlighted by the EPA are stratospheric ozone depletion, acid rain, and reduced crop yields. There's also the question of whether such large-scale climate interventions is even necessary given the uncertainties regarding climate change.
For years, anybody who questioned weather modification was labeled crazy or a conspiracy theorist. Now we've learned that they've been doing it for decades. One geoengineering company called Make Sunsets injects aerosol into the atmosphere to reflect sunlight back into space. I want to show you their frequently asked questions. Why? It says, unless we reflect sunlight, tens of millions of people will die, and 20% of species may go extinct.
Talk about gaslighting. The elites are now claiming they're spraying us with toxic chemicals to save lives and protect the planet. Let that sink in. They're calling it climate intervention, but it's the same poison falling from the skies. Meanwhile, bees, the very foundation of our food chain, are dying off in record numbers. Our natural pollinators, essential to all life on Earth, are disappearing. And when the bees go, we go.
We now know, with peer-reviewed study, that bees are testing with 70 times more aluminum in their system than what it takes to cause Alzheimer's or dementia in a human being. It's a wonder any of them are alive. 70 times more. Aluminum is very abundant in the environment, yes, but it does not exist in the environment in free form. It doesn't exist in free form. It must be mined and refined and sprayed for it to be scattered everywhere in the environment, and that's exactly what's happening. It's not just the bees that are dying. Every single one of us is being contaminated. These materials are bioavailable. They're building up in our systems.
And this isn't just an American tragedy, it's global. The same operations are happening across the Western world, from the US to Canada, Australia, and the UK. What we're witnessing is nothing less than a coordinated crime against humanity and the natural world itself.
And of course, after 3 days of being allowed to see the sun, what's happening to the skies overhead? I say to this government and all others, stop spraying us with shit that we never gave you permission to spray us with. If you're wondering where all the butterflies have gone, just look up.
This isn't negligence, it's control. A coordinated assault on nature itself. Driven by powerful interests that don't answer to the public. Behind the climate-saving rhetoric hides something far more sinister. A foreign hand guiding the operation, quietly influencing policy, funding, and public perception from the shadows. They're not protecting the planet, they're manipulating a nation. Earlier this year, we broke the bombshell story. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. had quietly formed a covert chemtrails task force, operating deep within the Department of Health and Human Services. While the mainstream media scrambled to dismiss it as a conspiracy theory, and armies of social media shills flooded the zone with denial, we stood by the facts. Then came the moment they couldn't ignore. RFK confirmed it on national television during his interview with Dr. Phil. And just like that, the narrative collapsed. The fact-checkers went silent. The trolls retreated into the shadows. And our sources and reporting? Vindicated.
My name is Emily, and my biggest concern is the stratospheric aerosol injections that are continuously peppered on us every day. Bromium, aluminum, strontium, it's sprayed in our skies all day long. And I know you've talked to Dane Wigington about this. He seems to be one of the experts in the field.
Is there a question?
Yes. How do we stop it?
I'm going to do everything in my power to stop it. We're bringing on somebody who's going to think only about that, find out who's doing it, and holding them accountable.
But that was just the beginning. The task force has been hard at work, monitoring social media for geotagged information about heavy spray zones. Shadowy government departments and private foundations have been infiltrated. Now, we've got a major update. According to a member of the task force, somebody who's seen the classified data firsthand, the truth is far darker than anyone imagined.
Yeah, I work for Chemtrails Task Force. The one RFK Jr. put together. He's my boss. And say what you like about him, but the guy's got fire. He's been pushing harder than anyone to drag this whole operation into the light. We've been inside Doppler systems for months now. We cracked their financial network using an old contractor's credentials. Half the systems still run on legacy authentication. It's like breaking into a fortress with the key they left under the mat. Once we were in, the picture got ugly fast. Hidden ledgers, coded transactions, and anonymous shell entities labeled as atmospheric modulation research. Turns out, this isn't about studying the weather. It's about controlling it. Billions are moving through what DARPA calls geo-adaptive resilience programs. But when you read the subfiles, it's clear. Large-scale aerosol dispersal, chemical payload testing, and behavioral data modeling on civilian populations. And the money trail? It's insane. Private foundations, corporate fronts, even foreign contractors feeding into the same black budget. Every day, the U.S. government is spending millions of taxpayer dollars to keep these aircraft in the sky, and the public has no clue. But what really rattled everyone was the foreign money. Israel, pumping in millions under something labeled psychological spray operations. Their documents literally talk about modifying population mood metrics. That's not weather control, that's psychological warfare. Now look, I know people out there are frustrated. I read the posts, I see the videos, everyone's asking, why aren't you shutting it down? Believe me, we're trying. But this thing is a maze, layers of contractors, classified funding streams, deniable programs buried inside other programs. Every time we pull one thread, 3 more appear. And the truth is, the Trump administration isn't all in on this yet. Some of them still think it's too wild to be real. Until they're convinced, we're fighting uphill. There are powerful people tied to these programs. People who can make or break the entire operation with a single phone call. So yeah, I'm speaking out, because waiting for the system to fix itself isn't working. The public deserves to know what's being done in their name, in their skies. RFK's fighting like hell, but he can't do it alone. None of us can.
We are fighting an information war, and they believe they can shape our reality, contain our ideas, and crush us before we reach critical mass. One of their most powerful weapons, a weapon almost nobody even realizes is a weapon, is sitting on your laptop right now, on your phone. It's your VPN. Israel isn't only controlling the feds, blackmailing Congress, paying US influencers to astroturf and spraying the skies. They've seized global control of VPNs, the very tools people trust to hide their most private activities. VPNs aren't protecting you. They've become the global dragnet for surveillance and blackmail. How did Israel pull off the heist? Not with guns, not with tanks, but with boardrooms, buyouts, and backdoors. 3 of the 6 most popular VPNs in the world, ExpressVPN, CyberGhost, and Private Internet Access, are owned by a single company, Cape Technologies. Cape isn't just another tech company, its roots trace back to Crossrider, a malware distributor notorious for hijacking people's devices. And its leadership? Packed with Israeli intelligence veterans, the very people who built Israel's most powerful surveillance tools. We're talking about veterans of Unit 8200, Israel's NSA on steroids, masters of hacking, blackmail, and surveillance. They created Pegasus and Celebrite, spyware used to spy on thousands of journalists and politicians around the world. We're also talking about the Dovdadin Unit, Israel's undercover death squad. Commandos trained to infiltrate, wage war through deception, and carry out assassinations. These aren't just names, they're written into the resumes of Cape CEOs, developers, and financiers. The founder, Teddy Sagi, is one of Israel's richest men, a convicted fraudster who bankrolls the IDF and brags about recruiting ex-agents for his companies. These are the people you're paying to protect your privacy. It's not just a sick joke, it's a punchline and you're the one they're laughing at. But it gets even worse. Cape didn't just buy the world's leading VPNs, they bought the very websites that rank and review VPNs. The watchdogs are owned by the wolves. And then there's ExpressVPN's CTO, Daniel Gerrick, a man exposed as a spy for hire, hacking dissidents and handing their data to foreign nations. He was fined by the DOJ, but ExpressVPN kept him anyway. Edward Snowden didn't mince words, but he didn't go far enough. If you're using a legacy VPN, cancel it right now. This isn't a drill, it's urgent. You're under attack. This isn't just a privacy issue, it's a national security issue.